The Dark Secrets of the British Empire. They don't teach in school. You know about the British Empire, the largest in history. But what if I told you there are dark secrets they never taught you in school? At its peak, the empire controlled nearly a quarter of the world. But behind the grandeur was a history of brutal exploitation, massacres, and cover-ups. The Bengal Famine, a man-made disaster. 1943. A famine in Bengal killed 3 million people. But this wasn't just a natural disaster. It was man-made. Winston Churchill diverted food supplies to British troops while millions starved. When warned about the deaths, his response: "If food is so scarce, why hasn't Gandhi died yet?" The Kenya concentration camps. Ever heard of the Mau Mau Rebellion? In the 1950s, Britain forced over 1.5 million Kenyans into concentration camps, subjecting them to torture, executions, and horrific conditions. These crimes were covered up for decades. The Opium Wars, drug dealing on a global scale. In the 19th century, Britain waged war on China to sell drugs. The British forced opium into China, getting millions addicted just to keep their economy strong. And when China resisted, Britain attacked, leading to the Opium Wars. But these aren't the only dark secrets hidden in history. The British Empire's impact was far worse than most people realize. The Partition of India, a bloodbath. Orchestrated by the British in 1947, the British left India, but not without chaos. They rushed the partition, dividing India and Pakistan overnight. With little planning, the move led to mass violence. Over 1 million people were killed, and 15 million were displaced. Families were torn apart forever. The Aboriginal Genocide in Australia. Did you know? When the British colonized Australia, they considered the Aboriginal people as flora and fauna, not even humans. Thousands were massacred, their land was stolen, and even their children were forcibly taken away in what's now called the Stolen Generations. The slave trade, Britain's dirty secret. For over 200 years, Britain was one of the biggest players in the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans were kidnapped, enslaved, and forced to work on plantations under horrific conditions. Even after abolition, Britain paid compensation, not to the slaves, but to the slave owners for their loss of property. The Irish Famine. Deliberate neglect? In the 1840s, Ireland suffered a terrible famine. But while over 1 million Irish people starved to death, British rulers continued exporting food from Ireland to England. They called it a natural disaster, but in reality, it was government neglect and economic greed. The hidden loot, how Britain stole wealth from its colonies. Did you know? The British Empire didn't just rule, it looted. From India alone, an estimated $45 trillion worth of resources were drained. The famous Koh-i-Noor diamond, stolen. Ancient Egyptian artifacts, taken. Today, many of these treasures are still displayed in British museums. For centuries, the British Empire was glorified as a force of progress and civilization. But behind the grand stories lies a legacy of bloodshed, theft, and destruction. Millions suffered, cultures were erased, and economies were drained, yet history books remain silent. They say history is written by the victors, but the truth cannot be erased. Now that you know, what will you do with this knowledge? Will we continue to ignore the past, or will we demand justice and recognition for those who suffered? Let's start the conversation. Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden truths from history. Subscribe for more unfiltered history.